The idea is this: when you read this portion of Scripture, when you read all of it, but in particular, this portion of Scripture, the idea is it's not just to gain knowledge. It's not just that you know more facts. I know PhDs that are theologians that have read Scripture, know the original languages, smarter than probably any of us in the room almost combined. They're not believers and they've been studiers of Scripture for a long time. I know people like that. There's a certain tragedy when that happens, because here's what Paul says in the New Testament: knowledge puffs up. Knowledge makes our head big. Knowledge gives us all kinds of information so that we can win a bunch of money on Jeopardy. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. And let me connect that idea of love to what wisdom really is. Knowledge is simply the gathering and understanding of facts. But wisdom, and I love how this is said, this is part of a commentary in a study Bible. Wisdom is the ability to live life well. It's the ability to know the right time to say or do something, and it includes the proper expression of emotions in relationship to circumstances. And I love that because, again, you can gain all kinds of knowledge about stuff, but when you and I are readers and studiers of Scripture, and we'll talk about, again, poetic and wisdom books, the idea is life change should be happening. Transformation should be happening. We don't just live the same lives every day and simply check the I read the chapter box in the Bible plan. The idea is it transforms us. That's what it means for you and I to learn to walk in wisdom. Now, real quick, take a step back from this whole conversation and say this: when you and I read these wisdom and poetic books, what it's gonna do is help you understand a few themes. One, the folly of all kinds of things. And here's just a simple and not exhaustive list. The folly of drunkenness, the folly of greed, the folly of sexual appetites outside of God's design, the folly of anger or blinding rage, of selfishness, of pride, of not learning from poor decisions you've already made, the sting of disappointment, the sting of suffering, the sting of sin's grip, as well as the problems of things like hatred and bigotry. This is a sampling of some of the themes that you're gonna find when you read the poetic books. The other side of the equation, though, is it's gonna talk about you and I walking out things that are virtuous, walking out things that we should lean into in order to be wise individuals. Again, not exhaustive, but a list. The virtue of self-control, the virtue of forgiveness, the virtue of generosity, of God-given sexual guardrails obeyed, of humility, of learning how to make wise decisions, the purpose of life, and the value of relying on God over our own intellect. Because we live in a world that says I have God inside of me and I can figure things out on my own because God's gonna sort of guide me. And you have all kinds of examples throughout the history of the planet of how that gets off the rails real quick. And so it's that idea of walking out wisdom that includes the need for utter humility. Let me read again part of a study note from one of the Bibles that I've used in the past. In these books, humans express their joyful and troubled prayers to God in the Psalms. They offer wise advice for healthy living in Proverbs. The struggle with apparent unfairness in life in Job and in Ecclesiastes, and they celebrate God's creation of male and female in the Song of Solomon or the Song of Songs. Through these books, we're presented with a human perspective more than other parts of Scripture, but God's voice speaks clearly and authoritatively. So the topic of wisdom is a big portion of what we learn when we read these books, but there's also the value of understanding there's poetry in these books. Now, the reason that's important is you've maybe read, Robert Frost or, Shakespeare, or John Donne, or, Dr. Seuss, I suppose, or whatever. But you read all kinds of poetry throughout your life. In fact, most songs you listen to are technically poetry put to music. And sometimes they rhyme, sometimes they don't. There's all kinds of formulas for it. It's important to remember, though, when you read poetry, that there's certain language used in order to evoke certain emotion, in order to sometimes get to the depth of what's going on inside of us. But it's also important to understand when language like that is used, you could say sort of flowery language at times is used, you have to remove yourself from assuming those are laws and principles God has given us. Because what happens is when you misinterpret things like poetic books in scripture, you all of a sudden experience something different than what you're reading and go, wait a minute, these aren't congruent, so something's not true here. So it's important to understand in poetry, there's going to be certain things are going to be said that taken at face value are easy to misunderstand. And it happens all the time, and it's why there are times where you and I can walk away from reading scripture and go, why doesn't that seem to work? And part of it is understanding there's symbolism, there's flowery language, there's things described that aren't meant to be laws and principles as much as, like I said, they're meant to delve into the heart of what's going on inside of us. And sometimes it's not the prophets that will do it. It's not just the historical books and understanding who God is in history that will do it. Sometimes, like I said, it's the poetry and the wisdom that gets to the core of what's going on inside and how important it is to explore those things as well.